Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some relationship stories. And if you love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. And let's crack on with today's first story. Now today's first story comes from a throwaway love sucks who says, my 30 female, best friend 30 female and her boyfriend 35 male discussed his permission to sleep with me behind my back, and I'm having trouble explaining why I am so upset by this, and it was compiled by a user called Somali MN. Okay, so this may be a long one. First and foremost, I'm not down to read any poly shaming. That's not the point of this post. Polyamory is a valid dating/relationship model when done ethically, and I'm laying that down first and foremost. Any advice given that has the air of "but poly is gross," straight up, I'm going to keep scrolling past and not take it in. So my best friend Cindy and I have known each other roughly 15 years and have been roommates 5-ish years. Cindy is poly and has 2 partners, one that lives close by and one named Mark that lives in Oregon, which is pretty far from us. I knew Mark through mutual friends prior to him meeting Cindy, and we actually slept together a couple of times back in like 2016. He's poly and I'm monogamous, and we decided it wouldn't work between us. But we maintain being good friends because we get along really well. I introduced those two in 2017, admitted under the he's poly, you're poly, piss poor attempt to matchmake, and they hit it off. In 2019, Mark had to move to Oregon for work, but they've been making it work via long distance and I'm happy for them. So, in 2020, I kinda lost my mind. I had to break up with a boyfriend who was in love with someone else. I realized I hated my job. I turned 30 and felt deeply unhappy with where my life was headed. So I decided it was best for me to start living. I quit my job, found a new one that made me happy, and I started to do solo hiking adventures. I mentioned in a group chat that I always wanted to camp in Crater Lake National Park in Oregon, and Mark offered his place for me to stay and offered to be my hiking buddy. He's into hiking as well. Cindy hates camping, hiking and nature, but was excited for us to have fun and help me plan the trip, until 2 weeks ago. Out of nowhere, Cindy was cold as ice to me. We take turns cooking, and suddenly, on her nights to cook, she would only make one portion and leave me nothing. She was short in conversation, didn't want to hang out with me in shared areas at all, and just seemed like she was pissed. I asked her if something was wrong and she straight up ignored me. I went to mutual friends who said they had no clue that something was wrong. Then yesterday, she invited me to a video chat with her and Mark. They told me they've discussed it, and I have permission to sleep with Mark on his trip. Apparently, one of the boundaries in their relationship is neither of us can do anything with either of our partner's friends. Mark mentioned 2 weeks prior that he would be down to sleep with me on this trip if I was down for it, which led to fighting between the two. Mark argued that he already slept with me previously, so I shouldn't count, and Cindy was sternly on, she's my best friend, so no. They reached an agreement and were excited to tell me, and I blew up at them. So many thoughts are swirling in my head right now, and I cannot even verbalize all the reasons why I am mad. It's like my best friend and her boyfriend, someone I consider to be a good friend too, view me as a sex object in some ways, but somehow worst. Sleeping with Mark wasn't even a concept to me, as he is squarely in the best friend's boyfriend and good friend boxes in my mind. I logged off the chat, told Cindy I was too angry to look at her, and have been at a friend's place for the last day. I need advice on how to convey to them why I am so angry, when I am having trouble coming up with a reason beside blind rage. I barely want to go on this trip anymore. I think that would really pee me off as well. It almost felt like Mark offered you his place to stay under the assumption, something was going to happen. And the fact that 2 friends called you up, I'm trying to picture it like being in a restaurant setting or something. 2 friends sat in front of you that you've known for a long time. They're a couple maybe. And then they turn around to you and say, yep, we've given each other permission to sleep with you. And I'd be like, what the fuck? No, you don't. It's like, you're not entitled to sex with me. And it would make me just feel like, my friends are viewing me in that way rather than a friend, And the fact that these friends have been talking behind your back about it, talking about if Mark can have sex with you without even consulting you or anything like that, it just seems really bizarre. Just because he's slept with you before. And imagine going on that trip now. You already know what Mark wants, so how uncomfortable are you going to feel being in that place while trying to enjoy your trip? It doesn't sound like a fun time to me. However, I do think you should certainly still go on this trip, enjoy yourself, just not with them at all. But before we move on to our updates, we're going to cover a couple of the comments. So Ambivalently OW says, take your trip, you deserve your trip, okay? Don't stay with Mark. This was completely inconsiderate of them to just assume you'd be okay with this. What a massive violation of your trust in both of them. I'm so sorry you had to deal with this, OP. Phoenix says in quotes, it's like my best friend and her boyfriend, someone I consider to be a good friend too, view me as a sex object in some ways, but somehow worse. Exactly this. They talked and argued about it amongst themselves as if it was a given that if Mark decided he wanted to sleep with you, then he only needed to ask Cindy, not you. Not only did they take away your voice in this conversation, Cindy took her jealousy out on you, which again is unfair because you had no idea what was going on. Had you asked to sleep with Mark, that'd be one thing, but Mark doesn't just have to ask Cindy if he can sleep with someone else, he has to ask that someone else. In this instance, you. Also, it sounds like this might have insulted you on an ethical level. If they're assuming you'd be willing to sleep with your friend's boyfriend, knowing you're a monogamous type person, what does that mean they think of you as a person? Also, if I were you, I would not go on this trip. Even if things settle, I'd take astronomical social skills to get past the lingering awkwardness. Working Context says, this isn't how polyamory works. I won't be a pawn in whatever dumb insecure game you two are getting yourself in. I don't want to sleep with your boyfriend, I never have, and it's unfair to treat me this way because of some situation you've made up in your head. And one more from Zaneth who says, I mean, you are not wrong. Mark isn't asked for pushing the boundary. Cindy isn't asked for taking it out on you. They are both assholes for treating you as some piece of meat to fuck at will. If I was in your position, I'm not sure the friendship would ever recover, and even if it did, it wouldn't be the same as it was before. There's nothing wrong with poly relationships, both of them seem to be too immature to be in one. Now, let's move on to these updates to find out what happened next. So one of the first mini updates comes from a comment that OP made on there that said, I think where the shock and hurt is coming from is mostly the fact that I've been treated like fucking trash for the past 2 weeks in my own home for an issue that if anyone asked me I could have ended with a quick, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. Mark is a good friend, and while he was a fun sexual partner like 5 years ago, he is squarely my roommate's boyfriend in my mind, and even with his permission, I wouldn't sleep with him. I am mad that Cindy treated me this way. I am frustrated at the apparent brainlessness on both their ends of not just talking to me, annoyed that my sexual potential was discussed in depth by both of them. Kinda upset that a good friend may have only invited me to stay over at his place for the potential of banging me. Pissed off that I am fucking sleeping on a fucking futon like a 21-year-old, even though Cindy was in the wrong. I left my apartment when she should have left. Ugh. I just have a lot going on emotionally at the moment. And another mini update before the final update, which says, okay, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who commented. Today has been rough for the most part, but me and the friend whose futon I am occupying got tacos and I got to process this for the better part of my day. My feelings have landed mostly on being upset with Cindy. No matter what drama was going on in their relationship, I was treated like a pariah in my own goddamn home, and that's unacceptable. The annoying part of this is now that I am doubting whether or not I would have even considered sleeping with Mark if the situation came up organically. My friend who I am staying at, she's also poly. I am of the few monogamous people in my immediate friend group, hence why I was really harsh in my post about not accepting poly hate because those are my people. Asked me how I would have preferred this situation playing out. My response was pretty much 1. Cindy not taking out whatever she was feeling on me while they were having their backroom discussion. 2. Being approached by one of them individually to see if I was interested in any of this and not in the weirdest fucking Discord call in the world. She was in the room right next to me, she could have just came in and talked to me solo. If Mark would have asked me, I probably would have run to Cindy being like, your boyfriend is hitting on me, I'm unsure if it's even allowed. If Cindy would have, Christ on the fucking cross, I'm unsure how that would have gone. Who knows, maybe with permission and wine and the breathtaking views of that lake. Seriously, ignore me and Google Crater Lake National Park. It's fucking gorgeous. Something would have happened. Nothing sure as hell is going to happen now though. This is a long-winded post to say that I'm planning to talk to each of them one-on-one because at the end of the day, I already dropped like $450 on a round trip tickets and I can't afford to stay anywhere else on short notice. I've looked into a campsite lodge and nearby Airbnbs and hotels, and everything is too expensive for me. And my PTO is already approved in my workbooks. I'm not going to be awkwarded out of my vacation that I have dreamed about. I'm going to talk to them both, and God help them if the first words out their mouths aren't, "I'm sorry." Next update says, "Hey everyone, it's been just over 3 weeks since my last post, and I wanted to post an update. If you didn't read my original post, is that I was planning on going on a trip where I'll be staying with my best friend's partners for 5 days. She was fine with it until she wasn't, and then treated me coldly for 2 weeks. Then she and her boyfriend told me I had permission to sleep with a boyfriend on the trip if I so desired. I got pissed and stayed at a friend's place for 3 days. It was such a fun experience. I went home after 2 or 3 days. I can't actually remember how long I was gone now, when Cindy sent me a message saying she wanted to apologize. Apparently Cindy reached out to the mutual friend I was staying with, and that friend went over every cruel thing Cindy did to me during her 2 weeks of shutting me out and told her to get herself together. We sat down and talked, and it was pretty illuminating what she had to say. Cindy and I have known each other for over 15 years now. For the majority of that time, I was the most introverted and shy type, while she was the "let's drink shots on the roof with this new friend I made 30 seconds ago" type. When the plague hit, we both had 2 very different responses. After realizing I was deeply unhappy with all parts of my life, I flipped everything on its head. I found a new job and made a bunch of work friends. I started doing solo adventures. I felt happier than I've ever been, and as it turns out, happy me is very bubbly and engaging. While I couldn't go out for obvious reasons, I started actually using Discord and engaging more with friends and going on virtual dates. Cindy did the opposite. Her job went work from home pretty early on, which cut her off from most of her work friends. And she lost an aunt she was close to due to the virus. Cindy works customer service at an online store, so after 8 hours on the phone in front of a computer, she doesn't want to Zoom or Discord or message anyone from the exhaustion of it all. Cindy admitted that she felt like she was falling apart, meanwhile the person she grew up with was doing better than ever. Cindy is not one to express her feelings. She comes from an army, what's a feeling family. She decided that the best course of action was bury everything in her chest and do nothing about it. Then Mark asked if he could sleep with me, and everything started leaking out. Cindy admitted that rule, neither of us can do anything with either of our partner's friends, is a bit more flexible than I originally thought, and is more of a "please ask if I'm cool with this before you flirt with my friend" situation. Apparently, Cindy was cool with the concept of us sleeping together previously. Back in 2019, I was planning a trip to Seattle for the summer of 2020. Mark offered to join me, and we were planning on splitting a 2-bedroom Airbnb. It didn't happen for obvious reasons, but apparently Mark asked Cindy during planning stage if he could even broach the topic with me, and she was cool with it. Mark, going off how she was previously cool with it, checked in again with her before he was planning on talking to me about it for the most recent trip, and that's when the blow-up happened. Cindy apologized for how she treated me the past 2 weeks and admitted that she felt like she was failing at everything in her day-to-day life, and that she felt she was going to lose her boyfriend to me if something happened between us. I honestly feel like a shitty friend in some sense, because while I knew her depression was flaring up again, I didn't quite realize how deep she was in it despite living together. I did stand my ground on the fact that while her feelings are valid, the way she treated me wasn't, and that type of behavior cannot happen again. She agreed and even invited me to sit in on a session with a therapist. She was already going to cope with the feelings in regards to her very messy family, which I said I would, after she had more solo time to process it. I did end up going on the trip. Mark apologized for blowing up my home with his question, and we had a conversation about how while he is sweet, I really don't see any future where I sleep with him again. He was cool with it and said he was excited to have a good friend come up for nature adventures. I just got home yesterday from my adventures, and I've been sharing the photos with Cindy for the better part of the day. She thinks the shots are beautiful, and her biggest concern is that I could have hurt my lungs since it was pretty smoky out there on one of the days. I was out there due to the wildfires in Cali. So, that's it. But I've got to say and be honest, that the whole initial conversation still, 2 people calling you and saying, yep, I've given him permission to sleep with you. I don't know how I'd handle that. It would make me incredibly uncomfortable. And I don't think, even if you paid for this trip or whatever, I wouldn't be able to stay with that person still, thinking, they thought about me in that way. And I know we do have some polyamorous people in our community. I sent a message on Twitter. I won't give away their username or anything. I sent them this story to read and what their thoughts were. They just replied saying, nah. Nah, that's not right. And we're going to finish off with a little Am I the Arsehole post with... And before we do jump into the story, I just want to give you a warning before we get into it. There is mentions of miscarriage and abortion. So please, if the story isn't for you, look after your mental health. Skip the story. It will be the end of the video for you, by the way. But as I just said, please look after your mental health and skip if you need to. Thank you. From Future Macron, who says, am I the arsehole for walking out of my sister's birthday party after she announced she was pregnant? Growing up, my sister, 26, and I, 23 female, were not that close. She was my parents' favourite daughter. I have always been a little overweight. I had PCOS. My sister was slim and fit. I always held that resentment towards her, especially when she belittled me with my mum, not letting me eat more than one serving of dinner or more than one serving of dessert, telling me that sleeping in was making me gain weight. She always overshadowed my accomplishments. My sister married when she was 23 to a wealthy man, 28, from our community. We're Indian. Her marriage was arranged. They have 3 beautiful kids. I love my niece and nephews more than anything. I married my husband, 26, 2 years ago, and we've been trying for a baby for almost 1 year. My sister always said that it was because I brought shame to my parents for marrying outside our culture that I couldn't have a baby. After many negative pregnancy tests, a few months ago, we finally had a positive pregnancy test. Unfortunately, when I was 4 months, I had a miscarriage. I was devastated. I couldn't believe what was going on. 2 months after our tragedy, my family threw my sister a birthday party. There she and her husband announced they were pregnant. My heart did ache, but I was happy for them. As the evening went on, my sister kept making comments like, "We weren't even trying for a baby. It's so funny how we get pregnant so easily." Just as I thought things couldn't get worse, we were standing with cousins when my sister said, "We didn't even want more kids. I was almost contemplating having an abortion." She said all that while looking at me. I am all for women having abortions, but having my sister use it as a weapon against me, showing off how fertile she is, how she was contemplating having an abortion after they decided to keep the baby and announce it, that really hurt me. I was so upset and frustrated. My husband noticed the change in my emotions immediately. We said goodbye to my parents and left the party immediately. I got many texts from my sister and our cousins calling me jealous and an arsehole for walking out on my sister's birthday party and not being part of their pregnancy celebration. My husband and our friends say that I had the rights to feel the way I did, but I'm not sure. So, am I the arsehole? Nope, you had me at going no contact with your sister as soon as she started saying my sister always said that it was because I brought shame to my parents for marrying outside our culture that I couldn't have a baby. Who says that kind of stuff to your family members? And all I can do is think about, like, if my brother said something, really nasty to me or was criticizing my life in any way, even slightly compared to what you've gone through there, I wouldn't want nothing to do with them either. And as always, I know it's so easy to say these things, cut people out and stuff, but, when they're damaging your mental health like that, targeting you like that, you don't want negative influences in your life like that. It's not good for yourself. You deserve so much better. Dami says not the arsehole, your family sounds like they suck. Ras Royalty says not the arsehole, first of all I'm sorry for your loss, and second, she stepped way too far to call you jealous. Good for you for leaving. Put you first. Affectionate Bite 3827 says not the arsehole, and I'd announce at the baby's first birthday that you're glad she didn't abort after all. Sub Girly Girl says not the arsehole, I would cut ties with my sister if she behaved like that. She doesn't deserve to have you in her life, and you deserve to be free of her. One more from CT4130 who says not the arsehole, you should heavily consider going low to no contact. Your sister sounds horrid, truly horrid. She has years of knowing what things to say to push your buttons and how to hurt you. Don't let her have that much power over you. She had an arranged marriage and you married someone you loved. You have more going for you than she does, and that burns her britches. In my opinion, I'd send one big group text to the sister and cousins and simply tell the truth. You didn't leave because you were jealous, you left because your sister, knowing you recently had a loss, decided to intentionally say things to bait you and put you down, and you weren't going to stand for it, and while you're happy for her, that doesn't mean you have to put yourself on the hot end of her hatefulness. Then I'll totally block their ass on my phone and restrict their ability to reach me on any social app. And there was one comment from OP in all of this, which was like a mini update as well. So OP said, "Thank you all for your comments. I did forget to add that I have totally cut off my sister from my life. I have blocked her and my cousins who have messaged me. It's a bit hard for me to cut off my parents, especially due to how I was brought up. My husband has been a rock through all of this. My in-laws support me like their own. Thank you so much for your support." Now, I turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? How would you deal with it? Would you go no contact? With the sister? With the whole family maybe? Even though, OP has said themselves they may struggle because how they was brought up. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, support, and time always does mean the world to me, and I just want you to know that. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Much love.
Wake up, get up, stretch my legs, eat some breakfast, milk and eggs, brush my teeth up, wash my face, throw my clothes on, start my day. Wake up, I can smell the smoke from the bacon. Let's go, see the sun shining from the windows. Okay, I know that today